In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to refresh a pivot table in Excel. Let's go step by step so you can keep your pivot table results accurate whenever your source data changes. First, open Microsoft Excel and go to the workbook that contains your pivot table. This is important because pivot tables do not always update automatically when the original data is edited. If values, rows, or categories in the source data have changed, the pivot table may still show older results until you refresh it. To update just one pivot table, start by clicking anywhere inside the pivot table. Once you do that, Excel will display the Pivot Table Analyze tab, which may also appear simply as Analyze, depending on your version of Excel. This tab contains the tools specifically related to working with pivot tables, including the refresh option. Next, click Refresh. This tells Excel to pull the latest information from the source data and recalculate the pivot table results. After refreshing, you should see the table update to reflect any recent changes. If you prefer using keyboard shortcuts, you can also press Alt plus F5. That shortcut refreshes only the selected pivot table, which is useful when you want a quick update without navigating through the ribbon. Now let's look at a helpful option if you want Excel to handle this automatically in the future. Right-click anywhere inside the pivot table and then select Pivot Table Options. This opens a settings window where you can control how the pivot table behaves. In the Pivot Table Options window, go to the Data tab. Here, check the box labeled Refresh Data when opening the file. Then click OK to save the change. With this setting enabled, Excel will automatically refresh that pivot table each time the workbook is opened. This can save time and help make sure you're always viewing the most current data without having to remember to refresh it manually. One thing to keep in mind is that refreshing updates the pivot table based on the existing source range. So if your source data changes often, especially if new rows are added, it's a good idea to make sure the pivot table is built from the correct data source. But as far as refreshing goes, the process is simple. Either refresh it manually when needed, or turn on automatic refresh when opening the file. And that's how to refresh a pivot table in Excel. Once you know these two methods, it becomes much easier to keep your reports accurate and up to date.